Welcome to 2023, our first workshop of the year. Nice to see everybody. I hope you haven't been affected badly by the snow, and those of you who are not in Montreal, we hope you're all well as well. I'd like to start first by saying that the new year is a new opportunity for discovery, and we hope you'll all make amazing discoveries this year. I can speak for myself when I say that last year I got access to a whole new set of data for Bobroysk in Belarus and was able to push the generation of the family to which I'm connected by the beta thalassemia genetic trait back 2 more generations. I doubt I'll ever connect with them, but we carry the same mutation of beta thalassemia, so we know we're cousins. I think maybe someday, with modern technology, artificial intelligence, advancements in DNA, anything is going to be possible. And I think we have to keep that in mind. And that's one of the reasons, if you've read about the documentation of Jewish records worldwide, or one of the initiatives that we think is so important is to be able to identify every possible source of information for Jewish genealogical researchers. And if you haven't read about DOJR, Documentation of Jewish Records Worldwide, it's dojr.org. The other thing I'd like to start with is to repeat what I put on our Facebook page last night. Many years ago, the Jewish Genealogical Society of Montreal fully extracted all the surviving Jewish vital records of Montreal and Quebec, and something like 70, 80,000 of them. In addition, we also did the same for the Jewish entries in the Montreal civil records. But there were many missing entries and missing years. Recently, the Quebec National Archives put the civil records from the first two decades online, but the records themselves were so tattered and torn that they typed them out. And so we immediately started work on adding those records to our data. And there were some, as an example, 1918, there were something like 85 registrations of births in the Montreal civil records for Jews. And when my wife was finished typing up the additional discoveries, I think we're up to around 250. And we just finished 1908 yesterday, and there's some additional ones there as well. So if you're looking for something in those first 2 decades of the of the 1900s, there may be something there for you. It's a way of saying that there's always something new found. There's always an amazing discoveries, records hidden in plain sight. Just last week, we, wearing my Jewish Records Indexing Poland hat, I got a file with all the various types of Sosnowiec, or Sosnowiec, however you pronounce it, records from the Upper Silesia area of southern Poland. And I'm talking about 40 different collections that you wouldn't think would have genealogical content. So to start off with, I'd like to just emphasize and remind everybody that ask, network, post messages, keep on connecting, because you never know what somebody else knows, and where somebody else can direct you to a successful uh, breaking of a wall. So raise your hand if, and if you're not showing your face, raise the hand that that you can raise with the connection to indicate if it's the first time you are joining the JGS in Montreal on our workshop. You see anyway, there's Jerry Scherer. So Jerry, just to repeat what our process is for helping people in our Sunday morning workshops, anything that's on your mind, you can share with us, and we will try to find some answers for you. We always start with newbies, but later on you'll find that the questions, as they come up and as we discuss things, the conversation expands, and it gives you an opportunity to come back in and enlarge on your original question. So why don't we start off with, if you could show your face, that would be helpful, but if you prefer not, you can ask your question. Let's see whether we can help. And it appears everybody's muted except me. So you have to unmute yourself to ask your question.
Well, I could ask a question. I don't seem to be muted.
Okay, go ahead, Thomas.
Okay, recently I've stepped back from the massive search that I was doing originally, and more of trying to get an idea of how to like step beyond a brick wall. What I found with my father's side of the family is his grandparents to his grandparents, but my mother's side of the family, I'm stopped at her parents. I can't get beyond that. It seems that they came from the border of Russia, right on the border of Russia. I guess back then it was, Poland or Romania, I'm not sure. And a portion of the family ended up in Siberia, and one of the daughters was shipped with another family to Canada. And that's as close as I've come to any information of what had happened to the family, or anything. I can't find any records anywhere beyond that.
Well, let's start with when did this lady emigrate, and where did she go?
Okay. Okay, Rosenblum.
Approximately.
I have the date that my grandfather was born. He was born in strange Hrubies Lubiska in 1890, and I have the Quebec when they entered Canada, July 16th, 1913, on the SS Mount Royal. That's
And where did they settled where?
In Montreal.
In Montreal. So have you found all the documents in Montreal? Have you found any, perhaps a GIS record, or does the passenger list says the name of the town, right?
Actually, I could not find their name on the passenger list. I found a similar name, so I thought it might be misspelling, but it just showed my grandfather traveling alone, which didn't seem right.
How old would he have been? So you're saying you found a passenger list, but you're not sure that this identifies him.
Right.
Okay. Well, two things we always have to keep in mind. Number one, spelling doesn't count, and that the spelling on the ship, which may be a transliteration from the Russian, can be unlike what the actual spelling was. But the actual spelling, again, varies from even from brother to brother and sister to sister. So it seems to me that you want to focus on number one, that ship record, see whether everything else in it corresponds to what you know or what you're able to determine. Secondly, to look at any other record, the departure record. That ship left from what port?
See, this is where I have no detail.
Well,
The
no, the shipping,
detail,
the passenger list will say what the embarkation port was.
okay. Most of the information that I have about him traveling came from the document that was created by the Canadian government on his arrival.
Okay, so first of all, was he naturalized? Do you know that? Have you checked that?
His natural, yes, I have that, and that was in 1928.
Do you have his application for naturalization?
I'm afraid not. I have the certificate,
Okay,
but
that's not going to help you. What you must do is you go to Library and Archives Canada online and find, and Gary, perhaps you could do that for him. Gary Proman is our expert. And so what is the name that he would have naturalized himself with?
I guess Thomas Glazer.
Thomas Glazer. Okay, so we'll look for Thomas Glazer. There's two things that you can do to find out a lot more information. The application for citizenship, which can be a 2-page document or a 20-page document, depending on circumstances. The second thing that you can do is you can write to Statistics Canada, and you can get the 1940 Canadian naturalization, 1940 Canadian National Registration. The 1940 Canadian National Registration, everyone 16 and over, alien and citizen, had to register. And there's very detailed information there in that collection that enables you to find where they were born and where their parents were born. And it costs $48.15, I think. Can take several months. And if you need help with that, you can email us privately, and we can provide additional guidance on that.
Stanley,
yes.
Gary just posted a link in the chat that you and Thomas might want to have a look at.
Okay, so let me look at the chat.
So that has Thomas Glazer from Poland. He's a tailor in Montreal. He naturalized with his wife, Celia Silverstone.
That's correct.
Okay, so you're all set. And what it also shows, and I'm just checking it, it also shows Glazer, where are we?
At the
That
bottom.
that his actual naturalization number, and you can quote that in your application. And it says, that he was on October the 4th, 1928. So I think that you're on your way, Thomas.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, and of course, as you learn more from that document, you can move on to learning a lot more, because you may get some specifics about other towns where the family lived, and you may get references to the various spellings as well. So next, who is got the next question? We have some,
I would love to ask you a question, Stanley.
okay, Peggy, can you share your screen, show your picture so we can,
Sure. Let me see here. I just woke up. My alarm didn't work.
I know that one. It's at the bottom left, stop
Why
video.
isn't it working? No, I know what it is. Why is it? Oh, wait. Back there we go.
There we go. So what's your question?
I have a brick wall with my great grandmother. She was born in Mogilev, which is now Belarus, and in about 1860, and she died in childbirth, I was told, in about 1887. And I cannot find her maiden name, so I can't go any further back. Let's see, I've got, where did I put it? Oh, she was married to my great grandfather, who I have information about. Where did it go? Let me give you the other information. So I have to go. Where it is. Okay. Okay, I saw two things where her last name might be Schuster or it might be Kaplan, but I'm not sure, and I couldn't find anything under those names.
So
My
where did you
grandfather's-
get the information on her originally? What was the source of that information?
then I've got to go look for it.
Is this a vital
I know-
record?
Yeah, some kind of record. I'm just looking here for, I know my great grandfather's name. I know the children's names. They all came to Toronto, Canada.
Right.
No, that's.
So wait a second. They came to Toronto. When did they come to Toronto?
The rest of them, let's see.
Approximately when?
But I have to look at the,
Well, did they come in the 1900s or the 1800s?
oh, in the 1900s,
Approximately when? Before the war, after the war?
before the war.
Okay, so contact the Ontario Jewish Archives and ask if there are Jewish Immigrant Aid Society records.
Jewish Immigrant Aid?
Jewish Immigrant Aid Society, that's JIAS. Now, there's a possibility if they stopped in Montreal, if they stayed in Montreal for a period of time, that they'd be in the JIAS records at the Canadian Jewish Archives. And you can search that online on the Canadian Jewish Heritage Network site. The easy way to get there is to use the JGS of Montreal dashboard, search dashboard. And Gary will be demonstrating the search dashboard a little later. Gary Perlman, our guru. And So that's two options for finding out. The second option, of course, is the same one, the naturalization for the for the family. Have you got the naturalization application?
Let me see.
The application for naturalization, not the naturalization record.
I have to look at at Ancestry.
No, it's not an ancestry. Application for the naturalization records are on Library and Archives Canada only.
Oh,
And you can search it by starting at the JGS of Montreal dashboard. And it costs all of $5 to get the application file, which may have multiple pages. If any of these folks were living in 1940, then you start by finding their address in the city directory wherever they lived and writing for the Canadian 1940 national registration, which also has a lot of information about their origins. Okay?
I hope I can do all that.
That's very well. If you can't do it, you're
Now,
right.
can I get to the dashboard without being a member of?
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you are stuck, you can write to vitals at jgs-montreal.org, and someone will try to assist you. Now, of course, we're all volunteers, and we appreciate when we do help that people make donations so that we can continue some of the our work in creating data.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you
I
very
just
much.
want to point out, excuse me, I just want to point out that Gary has posted some helpful links in the chat.
Oh, wonderful.
So check that.
It's
and-
hard to get all this down.
Well, it's in the
Exactly.
chat. It's in the chat. So
He put two links in the chat just now. I get what for JIAS and the dashboard on our website.
Yeah.
The first one is the Canadian Jewish Heritage Network, which includes JIAS records. The second one is the dashboard.
Peggy, do you see that?
I do.
Okay, very good. So let's move on and we'll try to help somebody else. Somebody has a question, and Howard Goldstein from Hamilton, Ontario. You're muted, Howard.
There we go. No, I'm Milton, actually, Stanley.
I'm sorry?
I'm in Milton, not Hamilton.
Oh, okay.
I'm further out of the city, in other words.
All right.
General question: Do we have any information yet on what's happening with the 1931 census, which should be released in June? Do we know who's doing what with it? If anything?
Well, I will tell you this, that the aggregators, MyHeritage and Ancestry.com, will be using every resource possible. Now, you may know that the 1951 US Census, when it was released, Ancestry.com used artificial intelligence to, to do in days or weeks what used to take months and months and months. So you can be sure that they're going to be on it, and the race will be on. Ancestry's more likely to be the successful one because they have the greater resources when it comes to North American data.
Just that for the 1951 US Census, we basically sort of heard things a year in advance, getting ready for, prepare for, this is what this one's doing, this is what that one's doing. And I sort of just hear crickets with regards to the Canadian one. And I'm guessing there's not as much interest, but we really haven't heard anything.
Well, I would suggest you could write to Ancestry, find out.
I tried looking at Library and Archives Canada, but they don't seem to have addressed it yet.
No, Library and Archives Canada wouldn't be doing that. They, I'm just trying to think where else you could get a quick answer other than asking me to contact Ancestry, which I could do, but write to me, remind me offline, and I'll try to have that answer for you.
Okay.
Stanley Mel Solomon has his hand up.
Mel, go ahead.
Yes. Hi, Stanley. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's not 1923, just to break the news. So 2 short questions.
Oh, did I say 1923?
Well, you were in the 19th. All right. My fast question is this: is Militz, which I'm not pronouncing properly, M-I-L-E-C-Z?
Mielec.
Mielec. Okay. General question: was that a big Jewish town? And
Well, there are a couple of ways to find that out. Let me share screens with you.
I can stop you for a second, because all I want to know is this: that I have my great-great-grandparents moved, it seems, from there to the Russian Empire. And they were known as the Militzer Goldenbergs to distinguish them from the others. So I'm wondering, why the hell would they leave what was then Galicia, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, for a slightly backward situation, unless it was an economic opportunity?
Well, that's typically the reason why.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a marriage and they follow their daughter
Right.
or follow their son. Somebody is sick, they need to be taken care of. All the typical family reasons. And you know, the fact that they all spoke, well, Galician not as much, but they typically spoke Yiddish. It was a very flexible situation.
Right.
You know, your language gave you an ability to go anywhere. You know, today if you speak English, you know, there's a lot of places you can go if you prefer not to have to go through learning the local language.
Right. In brief, it was a good town, and it wouldn't be that they would have to left, as far as I can see by the history. Yeah. I mean, who knows, right? Okay. Another fast question. I'm trying to keep it brief because I know.
Well, staying on Mielec, although there are no vital records for Mielec, there are notarial records. And JRI Poland has been scanning a lot of notarial records. In addition, when earlier I was talking about Sosnowiec and all these discoveries that we made. And what I can tell you is that the expert researchers on the ground in Poland, let's say from Rzeszów, because this would be in the Rzeszów archives, the Mielec records, there may be 10 or 15 different types of records, not necessarily specifically Jewish, that has information about the family. But let me just very quickly check and tell you what well, let me share with you. I'll share screens because I think this is generally of interest to everyone. Just let me go to share screens. Okay. So this is the JRI Poland's list of different notarial holdings. And so I'll do, so we see from 1860 all the way up to 1957 notaries that were active. You see this?
Right.
1860 to 1873, notary Antonio Bartoshinsk, whatever it is, I can't pronounce it. And that's in the Chemish archives. I misspoke, but some of the later ones are in the are in the Zhezhev archives. And you'll notice, for example, this particular notary, this was the Poviat notary, was their records from 1872 to 1957. That's quite a span of years. So the important point is, if you haven't read about notarial records, go into Google and put JRI Poland notarial or notary records, and you'll get an article on the value of notary records. And they are extensive, very extensive. And when I say extensive, I mean, those of us from Quebec know that notaries is the notarial institution, which was mandated by Napoleon in Poland, but it's actually predated by notarial records kept by the churches in Poland, and they record wills, they record marriage contracts, they record gifts of property transactions. And because photography was not readily available and these records predate photography, the way in which people were identified was by their family. And sometimes these records are extremely detailed as to the family information. And often, won't say often, but sometimes very wonderful discoveries that a protocol of marriage or a protocol of birth or death that is a document that records, that was taken from the original book, is part of the notarial collection. So that's one thing, but there are other sources as well.
Okay, one more fast, brief thing. Another town that I mispronounced, Plock, P-L-O-C-K?
Plock.
Plock, okay. The name is Zalman Kruk, K-R-U-K. He was born about 1801. You checked last time. I don't think there's any new records for that possibility.
Well, I don't recall offhand whether or not we've done any more indexing of Plock's records.
Okay.
But certainly the person to be in touch with is Greta Davis in Sydney, Australia, who is the town leader.
Okay.
We encourage people to be in touch with the town leaders. They are the very first stop. And this is her town as well. And Greta is a delightful and very, very strong researcher.
Okay, where could I find her email?
You don't need her email. You just go to the Plock Town Explorer page on JRI Poland, and there is a place for you to connect with her, send a message to her.
Okay, thanks. And one last slightly humorous thing, a selling point for genealogy, which I tell everybody, is that you get a whole bunch of new cousins and you can trade in the ones you don't like anymore. So there is an advantage to genealogy, and I have lots of evidence for that. So
I have a little bit of that as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Howard, I was just talking, Howard, I just want to bring you up to date that my friend Lynn from Gatineau, Quebec, delivered a beautiful banana cake this week. And Mel and Howard will know what I'm talking about. And it's something I'm very proud of and I'd like to share. This is a lady who contacted me a year and a half ago, called me on the phone and said, Mr. Diamond, your name was given to me by the Jewish Public Library. They said you might be able to help me. And her question was very simple, or her reason for her call was very simple. She had just got her DNA and discovered that her father was Jewish. The father that she had never been able to get her mother to admit to. And it took us, I guess, let's just say, 2, 3, 4 days, and we had identified her father, and Howard played a role in that, for which she will always be thankful as well. And the role, and this is what's interesting, because a 99 or 100-year-old woman took a DNA, that DNA was the key to be able to have Lynn find her family, find her father and her father's family, who have taken her in and have welcomed her on in such a wonderful, beautiful way. And not only did they welcome her, but she has she's enjoyed her Jewish roots. The first thing that she did was make a challah. She's a marvelous cook, and I'm a witness to that because of what she has brought me over the last couple of years, or a year and a half. And she was in town from Gatineau to visit with her father this week, and that's why I have been able to enjoy it. So again, Howard, thank you for that, and it just shows you never know what you're going to learn when you start digging into your ancestry. Next question, and somebody has a question, I'm sure. Arthur Sisman is.
Hi.
Oh, okay. We got Jerry Scherer. All right, Jerry.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. Our society, the JGS of Toronto, will be conducting 5 in-class workshops to new members starting in April. Rather than reinventing the wheel, I was hoping and looking here to learn whether or not you have taped and recorded past workshops so that I can use some of these ideas from these past workshops for our own members. Can you help me with this or no?
Vicky? You're muted.
We have a YouTube channel. I don't have the link offhand, but I'll find it and post it in the chat. And there are past workshops that our technician, Marilyn, has recorded. This workshop is being recorded. So yes, they're on our YouTube channel and they're publicly available.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to learning what you have. Sorry?
I was just saying, just keep in mind that you have to wade through the chaff in order to get to the wheat. And sometimes there are pearls of wisdom, and sometimes there's just a lot of conversation. So good luck, and we hope you find some goodies.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure there are.
Audrey also has her hand up, Stanley.
Oh, there we go. Hi, Audrey.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are things in Florida?
It's freezing. It was 40 degrees this morning. So I'm still trying to find information on my great-grandparents. I just found out where my great-grandfather is buried in London, England. And
buried where, I'm sorry?
In London, England.
Right.
And so I wrote back this organization that I found, and they have no other information as far as where he was born. I know my great-grandparents lived in Warsaw because my grandmother and her siblings were born in Warsaw. They left London, Warsaw to go to London, England, and my great-grandfather died there in 1894. And I'm trying to find out where he was born, or my great-grandmother, her name was Dora. I don't know her last name. But the family in 1906 moved to South Africa, except for my grandparents who moved to Montreal.
So if I understand, you're saying you had family that moved from Warsaw to London and London to South Africa.
Except for my grandparents who moved to Montreal.
Right.
Yeah,
So if you're tracing the other members of her family or of your great grandparents' family, then obviously there may be some information within the records that apply to your great grandparents as well. Where are they buried in Montreal?
um,
Which
my
society?
great grandparents are not buried in Montreal.
So and in London, do you know
My
this?
great grandfather is buried in London, and my great grandmother is buried in Cape Town.
I see. And the records that you got from London, what kind of a record identified his burial?
It just says the cemetery that he's buried in, the date of the funeral. He was buried December 30th of 1894, and exactly where it's located.
Does it say his father's name?
No, they had
You-
no other information. That's what I'm trying to find out.
Okay, but the Matseva.
Oh, I know
grave-
his father's name. His father's Hebrew name was B.
Okay. And you know where he was born or not?
No, I know they lived in Warsaw, but I don't know if they were born there
Okay.
or they came from somewhere else.
And what are you looking at? You're looking at an entry in a database, or are you looking at the original death record?
I don't have a death record.
So-
I wrote this organization. It's called BBO Reception in London.
Right?
And I wrote them back after they sent me all this information where he's buried, and they have no other information.
They don't have a death record, but a
No.
death record was likely created
Exactly.
in London.
Yeah.
So you should try to obtain that death record. We always say every piece of paper counts. You never know what might be written on a document. So get that original death record from, and it's probably listed in Ancestry. If it's not in Ancestry, it would perhaps be certainly in the British databases. Find My Past. I don't know if that's still the name, Find My Past, but go online, look for Find My Past, and you'll get another. Gary, do you remember the offhand what it's called now? Anyway, but that would have the entry, and then you can write for the original document online.
Okay, because I have a family tree. I
Forget about the
finally
fa-
found-
for-
no, but
forget-
I've asked them if they have any information, and nobody has it.
Okay,
Yeah.
get that document. The same thing applies in South Africa. Get that original document. And you may even want to try to see if there's an emigration record to South Africa that provides additional information. There's a South African Society. Go
Right.
online, look for records from in Ancestry or which is, that has a cost. You can go to the Montreal Public Library or any public library that subscribes to Ancestry and do the search there. You can also check with Family Search, the Mormon site, which is free and which has voluminous information, often different information from Ancestry. Sometimes they collaborate, but sometimes it's different information. Basically, it's a matter of continuing to look for all the different sites where there might be information.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah, thanks.
And Gail, don't you have any questions this morning?
I did. I wanted to, but you know what? You sparked something for me, and I don't know if it's too personal. You mentioned thalassemia.
Excuse me.
Vicky, you've
Oh.
muted yourself.
I think she's trying to say Ayala had her hand up.
Ayala has had her hand up. If you look
Oh, I'm
at the upper
sorry.
left, there
Okay,
are
so-
people with the hand
Oh.
symbol.
All right, so you'll have to prompt me, Vicky.
Yeah.
I focus too much. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's start. We'll come back to Gail. Ayala, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Yes, hi. Okay, shortly after my father passed away in 2021, this woman, Elizabeth Fortson, Fortun, Fortun, she's out in Florida, or I think she moved. She contacted me because I had swabbed my parents back then when through Family Tree DNA, and she reached out to me by email showing like a second to fourth cousin match between her and my late father. And she gave me what she had plotted out for the family tree. It is we always called it the Abaye family surname, Abaye. She has some variations of it that we never knew because we always found it strange. Abaye is a well-known rabbi's name, Sephardic rabbi, but we were always Ashkenaz. But it seems it seems to make more sense for variations. She has Abbas, Abayis, Abayev, Abaye, and Abvia from the roots. A lot of the roots is from Kishinev, Moldova. So it seems that after plotting it out, her grandfather, sorry, I just lost it here. Her grandfather, or her grandmother, I'm sorry. Her grandmother, Tsilia Abaye or Abayis, is siblings with my great grandfather, Shimon Abaye. There was a Toronto genealogy event a few weekends ago. And the person there told me that if it's the person they're thinking, she is sort of a genealogist or genealogy connoisseur, absolutely like reach out to her. We have been in contact, but I haven't had time to really look into stuff because I was dealing with my father's estate all this time. So now I'm having time to look, and I have a lot of questions, and I'm going to give her information of what I have collected on my end from my family tree, but there's still just a lot more questions, and I don't know where to pursue, how to pursue. And I did have one specific question about one person closer to my family tree that I cannot get through a cousin because there was a falling out.
Well, let me ask one basic question. Have you uploaded your family tree DNA results to other sites?
Very fuzzy. A long time ago.
Starting with GEDmatch. Have you uploaded it to GEDmatch?
I'd like to say I did. I don't remember. I don't recall. How do I know? How do I find out?
Well, you go to GEDmatch and you put in your information. You'll get a feedback whether or not you've registered. And if you don't have your password, they'll ask you for your password because your email will identify you.
Right. And when I swabbed my parents, it was through my email address. So I get all the contact information because they were
Fine.
like, my parents were simply like, you're more into this and it's your thing and you're more organized. Let us know what you find, so.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm saying that and the discussion I just had briefly with Howard Goldstein is illustrative. When she got when Lynn got her DNA that she was Jewish, she had not uploaded those DNA results to any other organization. And that's why we were very quickly able to identify who her family was and to pinpoint who her father was in days, not weeks or months. That's because she uploaded her data to other sites and other sites had the connections. So start with that, because what you may end up with is a third person who has a lot more information relating to both families. You never know. So
So I would go to GEDmatch website,
yes,
and there it will ask for email address, or I mean,
correct.
I haven't, if I've seen it, it's so long ago that I don't remember what am I laying my eyes on here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Ayala,
Yes.
remind me, where did you test?
Family tree DNA.
Okay. You can't upload to the two major sites from Family Tree DNA, which are
can or I cannot?
Ancestry and 23andMe. But you can upload to MyHeritage, which actually has quite a lot of European and Israeli. It's an Israeli company. You can upload to them for free from MyHeritage. By the way, your mother and I were fifth cousins, which unfortunately doesn't mean a whole lot. We might have been related 300 years ago or something. But that's the only other site that you can upload to for free. If that doesn't work, you might need to test. Well, I guess you can't, because you'd have to test your mom. But this is on your dad's side, presumably, because the name sounds like a variation of Aviel.
My father just changed it. He took the meaning of Abaye, which means
Right.
My father is God, and he changed it to Aviel, which means the Lord is my father.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's not that
So
Abiel.
it's the same.
It's
The same name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But at any rate, you
Changed it at
can.
18.
If you want more information on how to do it, just I'll speak to you. You can call me or whatever.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Vicki.
Bye.
all right. Any hands up, Gail?
Sure. You actually sparked a question for me when you talked about thalassemia, about yourself. I just recently, my daughter was advised that she might be a carrier. So I don't know if that's something out of your scope. And that totally surprised me, because I thought as children we were all tested for Jewish type of things, right?
Okay, so let me jump in. Beta thalassemia is not an Ashkenazic Jewish genetic trait.
Right.
So when my family was diagnosed as carrying beta thalassemia in 1977, when my nephew was tested at Harvard, to answer the question is, why does he have chronic anemia? It was the doctors at Harvard in the fall of 1977 that identified that, thank God, he didn't have leukemia, that he carried beta thalassemia genetic trait. Dr. Cooperberg at the Jewish General Hospital of Montreal was advised, and he tested the rest of the family. And I got back from my trip to the Middle East, and I was tested, and it turned out that the whole family carried beta thalassemia, my two sisters, and my brother, which was unusual because it's passed from parent to child, and is a 50-50 chance that you're going to get it each time. In our case, we seem to be the lucky family in all 4 children of my parents. The next thing, of course, is to find out whether it was my father or my mother, and it turned out it was my father. And then I've now traced the origin back to my great-great-great-grandfather in 1760. He was born in 1740. The important point about beta thalassemia is that Ashkenazic doctors didn't look to beta thalassemia as the cause of mild chronic anemia in their Jewish patients. So it's often been, and this is rather interesting, that it's been the Italian doctors who've had Jewish patients who have recognized the possibility, because beta thalassemia was originally called Mediterranean anemia and was carried by 1 out of 15 Greeks and 1 out of 25 Italians. So they have been preeminent in the study of beta thalassemia. When beta thalassemia became a critical factor in Montreal was when the Italian and Greek population exploded. So they were actually testing, Dr. Scriver here in Montreal started a program of testing in schools, going around and testing in schools. To give you an idea of how ironic it was when we think of Ashkenazic Jews carrying beta thalassemia, and I'm sorry for telling you the story, but it is an interesting one, I think. When they came to my daughter's high school, the Wager High School in Montreal, and they said, you know, who here carries beta thalassemia? And my daughter put up her hand, and they said, no, Jessica, this is, you know, you couldn't carry it. You may be thinking something else. And you have to know my daughter Jessica to realize or to appreciate her saying, I carry the beta thalassemia trait. What is it you don't understand about that? So that was illustrative of how unusual it was. If in fact your daughter carries beta thalassemia, then either you passed it to her or your husband passed it to her. So that's the next thing you have to do after she is either shown to be a carrier. Now, how do you know that she may be a carrier? Who told you that?
It was triggered by a pathologist after a blood test. So she's going to go take more blood work, but it was
Okay, so she's going to have to go to the next step. She has a low MCV. What's it called? The MCV is I've got a mental block, but that is the first indicator. And then, of course, do you have a blood test of any type?
I do. I have not been tagged.
No, you don't have to be tested.
Okay.
Take a look at your blood test, and what if your MCV is less than 78, you will have the same situation.
Okay. So
Okay,
I'm going to check. And this reminds me that my sister was always anemic. And that Stanley, on one of the places I've put my DNA, you were showing as a third cousin to me.
well,
Which
let
I
me tell you.
mentioned previously once, and you're like, yeah, third cousin, you know? Like, now.
Let me tell you, I got chills, and I'll tell you why. Because if you are, and we are related because we both carry the same mutation.
Yeah.
If you go to my website, diamondgen.org, you can read the paper on a medical paper that I'm a co-author with Charles Scriver of Montreal and Ariel Oppenheim at Hebrew University, talking about a family from Belarus living in Israel that carried this novel mutation, the only two families that have been identified carrying the FS2021 mutation. So you could do a mutational analysis, and I'll pay for it, to see if you carry the trait. Number one, you have to decide that. You have to get to that. I will certainly want to know whether you carry the FS2021, and it would be a joy for me to know that, because I've been looking for a third party, because with a third party, and try. No, where are your roots? I mean, just remind me.
Yeah, no, my roots are Bukovina and Romania and Poland.
Okay.
Really Eastern Poland.
Great. That's what I want to hear. Eastern Poland, because the family from Belarus are from Bobroisk, And that's what I mentioned before.
Okay. So we're on
And,
the border, we were on the border of Belarus kind of thing. We were like,
well, you know, it just
and, you know.
takes two generations, and you know it could be miles apart. But where my family lived in Ostrov Mazowiecka and Shniadovo, where the carrier was, no, I'm sorry, in Ostrov. It's only 500 kilometers from Bobroisk, so there's always a possibility. Anyway, we don't want to take up other people's time, but I'm delighted to hear, and I really want to hear more as you get some additional information. So I think it's now 11:04. I think it's time to turn the tape.
Andreas
Well,
has a question. Do you want to answer his question first?
Yeah,
Gary,
okay.
were
Andreas
you
has had his
finished?
hand up for a while, yeah.
Okay, who's that?
Very quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Andres.
I have two quick questions. So I've done my heritage DNA, and recently I've done also ancestry. So should I load up the ancestry to my heritage, although I have my heritage? Is there different information, or is it useless?
Load it up to Family Tree DNA for free.
Okay.
Load it up to GEDCOM.
Yes.
GEDmatch, yeah.
I don't know that. Sorry?
GEDmatch. You said
No,
GEDCOM.
no. Yes, but I have done all this with my heritage. Now I did another one, and I actually found two more cousins, which I couldn't contact, but anyway. And but
Could you repeat, where have you tested and where have you transferred the information? Like what sites are you on
in
right
my
now?
heritage. I've tested my heritage. It's on GEDmatch. I don't know if I have it uploaded in 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, you said you can upload to Family Tree DNA for free.
Yes, but can I, if I have two different, you see, I tested with my heritage, and now I also tested with Ancestry, so I have two different. Should I still put both of it, or are they identical?
Well, what you could do, I'm not an expert on DNA, but you could upload them both by using a separate email or something like that, just so to keep them separate and compare then, after you have uploaded both, compare the results in Family Tree DNA as to whether they're very similar in terms of the people that pop up. But GEDmatch is, GEDmatch is absolutely critical because it has this monster-sized database.
Okay, and the other question I have is about beta thalassemia. Does it show up in the tests with the commercial tests that I did? Or
No, beta thalassemia is a genetic trait. So the tests that are done by the various organizations don't use the same markers.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Gary?
Sure, I'll take over and I'll attempt to share screens. Okay, so I think you're looking at something that says Quebec Civil Registry, 1841 to 1918. The Civil Registry actually covers many more years than that, but those are the Jewish records in Quebec. For those of you who are familiar with the Drouin collection, it's a sort of birth, marriage, and death records that you can access in Ancestry.
Gary, can you raise your microphone a little closer to your mouth?
I can try. How's that?
Better.
Okay. To get into it, you can start at JGS Montreal and go to the dashboard, and then look in the dashboard for Civil Registry. I believe you'll see something like this. And this is a compilation of the records that are available at the banque at the Bibliothèque et Archives Nationales de Québec, and it's divided by different synagogues. So I'm going to do a little search. I'm going to look for Abram Victor's, my great-grandfather, got married in Montreal in 1901, and I'm going to look at his page. So this is in Ancestry. I searched the Drouin collection. The records at the National Archives of Quebec are not indexed. They're chronological. So you'll see me go back and forth with things that do index them. And they're indexed in Ancestry, and they're also indexed at the Drouin Institute. If I look at this record, let's see. I'll just look at it this way. Here's, many of you have seen records like this. I zoom in. This is a record from 1901 of my great-grandparents getting married in Montreal. And that's a sort of document that you see. And instead of looking at that, I'm going to look in. So I'm going to use this date over here, which is, let's see, I'm looking for the date, May 26, 1901. You can barely read that, and you'll see why I like these records. So if I go into the bank records, which I can go in several different ways. If I go into Base David, this is what you see. It's only available in French. You don't need to know too much French to get through it, but you do need to know some tricks. And the tricks are that you could look through this page for quite a while, and you'd never know to click on look at the documents. That's the only place where you can get to the actual documents. And here's the years. You can make that disappear or appear. And if we go to 1901, there's an index. It says, 18 pages. If you go into those 18 pages, you see there's actually only 4 pages. But there's marriages, and there's Abram Victor in folio 14. So if we go back, can't remember what was the month. It was May, I think. So folio 14, you can march through these pages, and they're kind of nice to look at. Make that disappear. And I happen to know that you have to go to page 28 here, and there's the document. So now you can see much more detail in this document. And if you really zoom in, you can see the strokes of the pen that was being used. That's not actually very useful, but it is useful to be able to see this in color and in more detail. So for instance, I can see that Abram Victor, that looks like his signature, and Jeanette Rudman, my great-grandmother, that signature is actually my great-grandfather signing for her. And it's got other information in there. And so if you find a document, generally between 1900 and 1915 or 18, you can find a pretty version of this document that'll provide more information that's in the records that you see in the Drouin collection, say from Ancestry. And in fact, on this page that I compile and occasionally update, it shows those 2 documents so you can see them side by side.
Yeah. Gary, let me jump in and mention the history here. What we're looking at, and you can actually, there's an article that in Avutenu on the history of this, but during the war, Mr. Drouin had a truck with a 2,000 watt bulb and basic equipment for microfilming, and went from archive to archive to microfilm. So the microfilms, the original microfilms, the JGS of Montreal got a copy, and what you see here is the JGS of Montreal copy, which is the same version, same type of copy that Ancestry got many years after we had already indexed it. And so you're talking about, several generations, where on the right-hand side, you're looking at a scan of the original book. So that accounts for the difference.
Okay.
Over to
Now, I think there's some opportunities with this information, and in some ways I wonder why I didn't think of this sooner, and maybe other people have. But there's the records for the German and Polish synagogue, which is Shar Shemayim, and if you look at those, there's various documents that go from 1859 to 1918. There's actually a page for 1919 for Shar Shemayim and not the German and Polish synagogue because the name changed, but there's no documents there. There's also a set of burials that we have, and if we look at this page, so here's the earliest burial in Shar Shemayim from 1849, Samuel Moss, and these are in order. So the documents in the National Archives are also chronological. So you can go through these one by one, and you can find people who are documented in two different ways. One is in the cemetery, and one is in the shul records for deaths. Now, it turns out that Shar Shemayim has how many records? 28 records in their cemetery. The only information on the records are that the grave is occupied. You can understand why that's important for the cemetery. They don't want to, try to bury someone in the same place. But that's all the information they have. One of those plots actually has a stone that the information wasn't ever used because it was in Hebrew. So we can read that, and we can go through the National Archives and look for the same records, look for a death record for the same person. So my plan is to go through all of these, and for each record in one place, I'll look for a record in the other place. And where I don't find any, we'll have a burial that is newly documented. I don't know if we'll find more than 28 or less than 28. I think it'll be more than 28. And we'll have basically discovered new people in these records. So, the first time I came across this, William Shatner, the actor, had a brother. He lived for 7 months in 1935. I don't even know if William Shatner knows that he had a brother. His brother, we have a birth record for his brother. We have a death record for his brother. We don't have a gravestone for his brother. I've looked. He says that he was buried in the Back River. The family could afford a stone, so it's a little surprising. So there's little pieces of stones scattered around the whole cemetery. Maybe someday I'll find that. But in the meantime, David Shatner is not doesn't have a burial record in, for example, Jober for people to search and find. And that doesn't make sense to me, because we have a burial record. We should be documenting these burial records. In Baron de Hirsch, I found about 70 gravestones for people who were not documented in the Baron de Hirsch database. I'll have to try again, maybe this year, but in the past, they didn't believe me. I could show them a picture of the stone and they'd say, oh, well, that's this person. That's Joe Schwartz. No, this is Joseph Schwartz. Here's a picture of Joe Schwartz's stone, and here's Joe Schwartz. They're two different people. They have stones in different parts of the cemetery. They're not the same person. These are missing graves. And so I really don't know why, but when you have more than 50,000 burials, you're going to have, a few dozen here and there cases where you have people who don't have gravestones, who aren't in the database. You'll have people who do have gravestones that are in multiple places in the database. You'll have every possible situation. So what I'd like to do is use these records from the National Archives to go through one by one for each record, match it up to the burial record. Once you get into, 1919 is pretty early, but once you get into the 40s and 50s, things are very organized. You don't find people who were buried and now are missing. But 100 years ago, 120, 140 years ago, you find quite a few. And so we'll see how many can be found and whether it's actually useful to people. I always wonder, putting in all these Jober records, how many actually get found and people look at and they find information that they're looking for. You don't know, so we just try to do everything we can. But maybe someday, William Shatner will be wondering if he had a brother, and we'll have information on his brother waiting for him. So that's about all I want to say on the civil registry. You can go there, I think, for pretty versions of documents, and they're not only pretty, but you can read more information on them. There's many documents where you can't read. The version that you see, say, in Ancestry or in the Drouin collection, but you can read the color scan. And the other thing is that especially when you have a set of records that are for one shul, and that shul has its own cemetery, you can go through both records in lockstep and find whether those match up accordingly. And when they don't, you can add information records to the other. So I'm going to stop sharing. Over to you, Stanley.
Well, I think what Gary has just shown is what I started with, saying that sometimes there's just this one record that you're looking for that you can't find, but it's there someplace hidden in plain sight. And the value of Gary's work, which is incredible, in documenting all the graves in Montreal, has been used by so many people to make discoveries. There's just one case that I'd like to touch on. A man in Germany, and without going into, we'll call him Wolfgang. And so Wolfgang was born in 1947, and his mother and father were not married. His father was a Jewish man, family from Montreal, and his, pardon me, a family that settled in Montreal. And his father and mother met. She was a German woman. They met at work. He was in a DP camp, but he had a job in the town. Unusual, but it was possible under certain circumstances. When it came time for them to emigrate, her father would not let her accompany him to Canada, and she was still a young woman. And so our friend Wolfgang knew who his father was. Years later, he decided he wanted to find his father, and he started looking. And he found a grave in Montreal on Joburg. And so he reached out to us, and sure enough, we were able to confirm who his father was. And the interesting thing was his younger brother denied that this could possibly be the son of his brother who had already passed on. However, and this is where it gets rather eerie, number one, our friend Wolfgang had the documentation where he accepted paternity on the birth record and had information on, Michael's father, on his father's father. So that was confirmation. But when we got a photograph of Wolfgang and compared it to his father, you had the identical eyebrows, identical ears, and both with a beard cut the same way. So you tell me whether DNA is a factor, I don't know. But it's illustrative of one grave making such an incredible difference. And so again, Yasher Koach to Gary for that work. So do we have any other questions? Now, just as an aside, there's many other aspects of the dashboard that can be used, particularly. And Gary, why don't you illustrate the use of the newspapers, because I think that kind of information is sometimes very revealing. Just another DNA case related to Montreal. A man from Boston was looking for his family. He didn't know who his Jewish family was, but he had all these connections in Montreal. And finally, he found a anniversary party listed in the old Canadian Jewish Review that listed all the people that were there. And so he started looking at and trying to figure out a family tree with all these people. And ultimately, he realized who his father was based on the age and the potential of the age. And the only downside is that his half-brother does not want to meet him. And of course, we respect privacy, and we have never revealed one to the other. You having trouble sharing screens, Gary? Your sound is turned off. Okay.
Yes, I am having trouble sharing screens. Let's see, if I make screens disappear. Okay, so you wanted an example of newspapers. They come up in several places. One is under Jewish, there's Canadian Jewish newspapers. I can look for Abram Victor. And so there's the Canadian Jewish Review. And let's see. Well, I'm not finding anything, but it's, it's harder to do this live with certain resources. And the Canadian
Okay.
Jewish newspapers is certainly one example where it's difficult to find things unless you have something prepared.
Okay, so why don't you demonstrate what the search results look like?
Okay. Try sharing screen again. I'm having trouble sharing again. It doesn't look like it's sharing the right screen.
Oh, while Gary is.
Okay, finally
there we-
found it. So you wanted me to search through the Canadian Jewish newspapers or something?
Yeah,
else?
let's do the Canadian Jewish newspapers.
Okay. So this is searching through Google, which has different indexing than if you went through their own site. So
Can you bring up results?
I'm trying. Okay. It's not letting me type into the box. So,
Gary,
yes,
I think it might be helpful if you give a quick introduction or refresher on where the dashboard, this dashboard that you've created is located, and how, like go back a few steps, because this
Sure.
seems to be coming out of nowhere.
okay, so if we go to the JGS of Montreal website, and you go down to the research tab, there is a link to the genealogy dashboard, and there's also a little form. So here's Perlman, Izzy, that's my grandfather. And now what's happened is we're on the dashboard and it's filled in that form up there, but it's also filled the names into a lot of different forms. So if we go down to say Jewish resources, you could search in Jewish Gen or JLI Poland and so on. And here's Canadian Jewish newspapers. And there's two ways of searching. One is at the website at Simon Fraser University. Their search doesn't work anymore. They updated their software. They made a big effort, and they have a bad search engine. It doesn't work properly. And they ran out of money to correct any of these changes, so it's worthless. The problem is that if you do search, you'll find some things, but not all. And so it's like a just full of bugs. So you can also search through Google limiting it to Simon Fraser University. And so here is a record that you get. And here's one of these records. We'll take a look at it. We'll open that in a new tab. And so here's November 26th, 1926. This is looking promising. And it has the name Perlman Grief. Perlman is misspelled, but Google helped us out with that. And so Bella Grief, married Izzy Perlman. It has all this information about Sarah Ship in white Georgette studded with rhinestones. It has all this information, but it also names all these people. And so mixed in with this social stuff of social interest, there's stuff of genealogical interest. And it also says where they were living. So, that's just one source of information. There's a lot of others. So if we search through the Jober database, for example, we'll have 4 records there. Jewish Gen will now try to get a donation from me. And there's Isidore Izzy Perlman, and we can look at his record. And so there's his gravestone. And our records in Joburg have a link to JGS Montreal, and our records have more information. So there's still the gravestone. There's the gravestone with his wife in the background. And there's links to more information. So there's actually a Genie family tree. Here he is on Find a Grave. Here's a newspaper article. Here he is on Billion Graves. And there's links inside the family, so I can go to records directly for various people. And so while you're on the dashboard, you have this filled in, you can find information in a lot of different places. So you can search through newspapers, you need a subscription for that. And you can search for, say, naturalization. So here, I can look for a naturalization record for him. And we will not find one. We will find him, it turns out, in the 1940 National Registration, where he claims to have been born in Montreal, but he wasn't born in Montreal. So I was always concerned about this record. Sometimes these sites are very slow, you never know. But it turns out that his father naturalized, and because he was a minor at the time, he was conferred Canadian Canadian citizenship by that. So he wasn't voting later on without being a citizen, so that made me feel better. I've given up on that site, but you can go through a lot of different places looking for various types of records. So if you just start off at JGS Montreal and you go to this form over here, you can just fill it in and then do a lot of searches for a lot of different databases, many of which are free, some of which are not. So if we go back there, we can go into, for example, the Drouin collection. That's not free to search, but here is a marriage of 1926. And here's Izzy Perlman, born in 1926, different Izzy Perlman. So if we go into this record, it has that information, and chugging along, we can view the information if you have a subscription. For some reason, Ancestry has gone away. These are always my favorite records to find because it has Izzy Perlman, native of Russia, son of Abraham Perlman and his wife, Leah Schwartz. So it gives you a little family tree right on that one marriage record. Is Bella Grief, daughter of Nathan Grief, and Riva Prostak. And it has Izzy, and it looks like he wrote Perlman. And there's Bella Grief. She wrote her name. Sometimes you can find a lot of information just in the signatures. So there's a lot of information in those records that you can find without doing very much work. You know, we can look in the archives of Montreal. We don't find anything, but that's not that surprising. We can look in Montreal newspapers, and here's Izzy Perlman, and he's suing someone. So or he's getting sued. Who knows? That's also 1938. That's my father. That's my father. And here's various clippings. And here's Izzy Perlman, husband of Bella, father of various people. and it names his brothers and sisters, and it says when he was buried, but not where he was buried. That's findable from another source. So that's
Gary, do you want to just show the city directory?
the city directory. So do you mean Lovell's?
Yeah, Lovell's.
Okay. So if we go to Quebec, there's a bunch. If there's a form on the dashboard, then I could figure out a way to take that information and send off a search. For Lovell's, I haven't figured out a way to do that. And Lovell's directory looks quite a bit like the National Archives of Quebec, because it's the same site. And it's the same sort of thing where you have different ways of getting in. Steve Morris has provided a way to get us into that directory a little bit faster. So if I'm looking for Perlman, and I'm looking for a year, what's a good year to look for? A good year to look for is 1940, because you can look up an address in 1940 and you can use that to request their 1940 national registration. This is a registration during World War II that every Canadian over the year 16 or over had to provide. So I can go to the name, and it's loading a 200 megabyte PDF. It's kind of slow, but there's advantages to it, which is that you can search inside the PDF. So this has put me in, and I'm looking for the name here. Okay, so we're under M, but we can search inside here and look for Perlman. And it's found 3 matches. So there's Perlman, and there's all the Perlmans in the 1940 national registration. And here's Isidore. He's a junk dealer. It has his residence and his office, and 722 Bloomfield. That's where he lived. And there's other Perlmans in there, and so I can track all the Perlmans in Montreal. There's actually even more because this is under Perlman, but there's actually some Perlmans under Pearlman, and I didn't find any. So from year to year, you find different spellings for different names. Let's see.
Gary, why don't you take one of the Perlmans and go to their street address and show the neighbors?
Okay. Well, I can find Izzy's neighbors. So let's see, Isidore on Bloomfield. So if I go to 1940 registration and I look for Bloomfield at the top of the screen here, we can go to the street directory.
722.
I remembered that. No, I didn't. I'd forgotten it right away, but you were smart. Okay, so now I'm going to look in. I certainly don't like that there are so many matches. Okay, I'm getting closer. We're up to blurry. Okay,
There we go.
there's Bloomfield. And I'll zoom in a bit. And we're going to look for 722. And there's Perlman. And these are the neighbors. And sometimes these neighbors can be very useful. So Perlman, you know, you got easily a 25% chance that in a census that name is misspelled. But if you can find them in the directory, say in the 1921 directory, when there was a census, or upcoming the 1931 directory, we can look for names that are nearby, who would be nearby in the census, but would not be misspelled. So Louis Hébert.
Gary, I think my pediatrician scroll down a little. No, the other direction. Scroll up. I'm sorry. Oh, stop. So where's your Perlman? It was yeah, hold on.
722.
There. 714A, Harry Bacall was my pediatrician.
Okay.
And I was friends with his son.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's my cousin by marriage. It's Mel.
Yeah.
By the way, Andreas has his hand up. I don't know if it's a pertinent comment or question, but just
Well, let me just jump in here and add a very a key point. The directory also shows the cross street, and so you can go around the corner, if you will, and look who's living around the corner, and that can be very important, because what typically happened is one family moved to, let's say, to NDG, as my parents did back in the 30s. But the reason they moved there was because my father's sister, Steinhouses, had moved. So you start looking around and you find other members of the family. Another point when you start looking up these things is you may have a 722 Bloomfield, and you find out that it's not Izzy Perlman living there. So there's a disconnect. And why is it in one place and not in another? Well, it may be that they created they didn't have a computer, so they created the information at a different time when they had already moved out or had already moved in. So there's, you have to do some digging in order to be sure of some of the answers. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead. Andres, unmute yourself.
Yesterday, I put it up on our Facebook page, and also I sent it out in the list. And it's called New Tool for Jewish Genealogy. And Stanley and Perlman are involved in that organization. It's Eldor Vidor Foundation. And it says, where are all the records? Can I share the screen? Yeah. So what is this? Do you know? Because Stanley is in the board of directors of this organization.
Oh, okay, so basically what you're looking at is a image created by Chatbox. This is a artificial intelligence image created by Chatbox, just to illustrate what can be done. Now, if you go to Lador Vidor, you get a taxonomy. A taxonomy is a list of all the various types of sources of documents. So here, there it is. where are all the records, and there's custodial entity types, the type of organization that holds records. And but in terms of the types of records, you have to go to you would have to make that larger. Anyway, the mission of Lador Vador is to create a master checklist of all the sources of records, categories and subcategories and definitions, and actually to look at all the different types of records that might exist for your family and then try to find them wherever they may be. Ultimately, the idea is to populate the Lador Vador catalog, in which Gary has played a very important role in the concept of the catalog because of his experience with with WorldCat. And there are pilot projects that have been completed. Venezuela is still underway. Victoria Province in state in Australia, where there's been efforts to find everything possible that might exist for those places as an example of what can and should be done. That's it. Thank you, Andres.
So is that the same like you said this at the beginning, where you can find every Jewish? That's a different organization.
No, it's very important to understand this is a catalog. You're not going to find records. You're going to find, you know, let's just say that you're looking for any kind of document that you might you want to identify, any kind of document that you might want to find if you're if you're visiting Mielec, let's say in Poland. What kind of documents would exist for Mielec? You can go through a list of 300 different people, 300 different or more records or types. Now, there won't be a philanthropic service that you're looking for, but there might be private households. There may be religious organizations. All these organizations created data, and that is what where the magic lies, is uncovering the data. So it goes from what types of records are there, finding the source of those records, and searching those records, either physically in the archives or finding some place where they've been documented and indexed.
No, Stanley, at the beginning you said that there's an endeavor where you try to find all the Jewish records. Is that the same? Or
No,
are we talking two different things?
What I meant, what I was trying to say is that every type of record, every type of source of record that might have Jewish information, might have Jewish records. So, you know, a journal or newspaper has many different people, but there will be within the newspaper Jewish information. If you go to a city, a town, where there was a large Jewish population, then you would expect to find many of the articles about Jews. That is an example. My town in Poland, Ostrów Mazowiecka, was 50% Jewish for 40, 50 years. So were the newspapers from that town, or any kind of journal from that town, other than a religious journal or something that was focused on a specific group of people, would it have the information about Jews? Absolutely. And if there was a major event relating to the Jewish people, it might list a lot of different individuals. So for example, in 1934, a bus crashed into the river, the Bug, went off the bridge in Sadovna over the Bug River. and the bus went into the river, and something like 37 people died. They're all listed in the various Polish newspapers, and that's where I found my father's first cousin. So that I should say, to be, for full disclosure, I found in his death record that he had died, pardon me, not in the books of residence. A note said he had died in Sadovna, and so then we went to the Sadovna and mentioned bus accident. So one thing leads to another. That's the important point of all this. The books of residence entry led to the newspaper, and then led to the death record in the town near Sadovna, where the Jewish records were recorded.
So are you talking, that's what I want to understand. Are you talking about this thing that I showed you on the screen, or is it something different?
No, I'm just pointing out that there are books of residence,
Yes,
and that's mentioned in the taxonomy. Newspapers are mentioned in the taxonomy. Death records are mentioned in taxonomy. In this case, there are 3 records that I'm referring to that are all mentioned in the taxonomy. But sometimes there are things in the taxonomy, those of us from Montreal who grew up, maybe a list of AZA members, or Mu Sigma fraternity members, or a fraternal organization that had lists of people and maybe details associated with lists of people. So
Okay.
that's what the intention is. Let's not focus on that anymore. I want to, we only have a few more minutes. I just want to emphasize a couple of things with reference to the Jewish Genealogical Society of Montreal and our activity. We, over the years, have created probably the most amount of data for any society in North America. Part of the reason is the fact that Quebec is unique, the fact that the Jewish records of Quebec were kept separately because we were under the Napoleonic Code until 1993, when civil record keeping was mandated and the rabbis no longer kept the birth records. So it's been a mitzvah for us for having those Jewish records available as independent standalone books since 1841. That's number one. Number two is we have also indexed Mohel records. The Mohel records are now integrated into our master search of vital records. We have a master search ourselves. What the beauty of our master search, and I guess I should share my screen with you because it's not like Ancestry. I'm going to share screens. And this is going to be very quick. And when you write to Vitals at Montreal, so let's look here at, and let's go to Find, and let's look at Izzy Perlman. Not one I would normally go to first, but we only know that it was either Izzy or Isidore or Isaac, we're not sure. And maybe if you searched Ancestry, it wouldn't come up. So we'll just put the letter I in. And so we have Isaac, we have Israel, Izzy, and then we look at the record. And there's Izzy Perlman's marriage record. So we do this not online. This is a private set of data created by JGS of Montreal. Now, what if we say, you know what? Who are the children of, well, Leah Schwartz as an example. So we have Leah Schwartz. did she have siblings? So we can put in, redo find, we'll do find, we'll put in Leah Schwartz,
Wait a minute.
and we'll just put in Leah here, again, an L. Too many. So we're going to have to redo find, and we'll put in Leah.
Sydney, Stanley, this is very interesting, but it is 11:59, so I'm just giving you
Okay.
1 minute more warning.
So just one more thing, and you'll see that Leah is the daughter of either Huna or Judah. So you have a chance to figure out which one is the one you're interested in. Okay, so we'll stop sharing screens. But we also can search the naturalizations in the same way. That is, we can do a deep dive into the records that you can't get on Library and Archives Canada when you look at the naturalizations. The same thing applies to the deaths and the marriages in Quebec. So if you have a mixed marriage and you want to know about a non-Jewish marriage, we can also search that. Let me just end up by saying that our society has tools, our society is building more tools, and often we need your input and your questions to inspire us to move forward. We're also looking for volunteers, so keep that in mind as well. Thank you all very much. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.